Hi, Emma.
Hi, how are you doing?
Not bad, thank you.
Keeping well, given everything?
Yes, same as everyone. Good days, bad days. How
Yeah,
about you?
it's a roller coaster. Yeah, getting really into jigsaw puzzles, which is something I never thought I'd say in my life.
Right. Yeah, there was a big phase of friends of mine doing that last year. Yeah. No, it's a good one. It's a really good mental, stretch. We need to keep our minds active.
And it takes time, and that's good.
Yeah.
It's
I've had this theory that anything you can finish at the moment is good because I find like with my working life, I just don't finish anything because I'm setting projects up and I don't know when they're going to happen. So I like cooking meals and sort of going into the garden and planting something because I know that I will have by the end of that actually done something. And a jigsaw puzzle like that, right? Sort of start, you're going to be finished at some point.
ThatShelf.
I wanted to say congratulations on the movie. Given everything that's happening right now, it's quite an accomplishment to get anything out there right now. So congratulations.
Thanks. Thank you.
I know that you didn't film during the pandemic, but can you talk a bit about what the last year has been like for you?
It's been hard. I mean, it's been hard for everyone. I mean, I've had a lot of things cancelled and put on hold and a lot of uncertainty. I lost someone very close to me very early on from the virus, which was just horrible.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
And I'm hugely sort of sympathetic to everyone who's sort of gone through that because it's particularly awful losing someone where you can't be there. So that sort of put a bit of a bomb in the middle of the year. And with the film, it was sort of, when are we ever going to put this thing out? I mean, our distributors have been, I have to say, absolutely brilliant. I've been so, and producers and finances, everyone's sort of done their best to sort of go, oh, should we do it here? We thought we were doing it here. And actually, as it turns out, I'm pleased that it's been released now because, the cinemas are sort of gradually opening up. And it's a sort of good moment, I think, for people sort of need new stories. I mean, not that this is a new story, but it's new to the audience. So, yeah, I think it sort of worked out all right in the end.
Well, and it is kind of a new story for a lot of people. We're surrounded by a lot of kind of larger than life superhero stories right now, but Greville Wynne's story is very much kind of an ordinary man getting a chance to do something extraordinary. And Penkovsky, to some extent, very similar. What is it that struck you about or resonated about the story with you? And did you know about it before you got involved with the film?
No, I didn't know about it. And I mean, one of the things I discovered after I read it and sort of found out about the story was that, I would say anyone over the age of maybe 65, 70 sort of knew the story. But it was sort of hushed quite quickly by MI6 because Greville Wynne was sort of putting a lot of stuff out there in order to make a living.
Right.
Because he lost a lot of his business. So he sort of put the story out there and they were like, we are a secret service. We cannot have you going around, doing this. And they threatened to take away his pension, which they were, that they promised him sort of, they basically supported him, but they said they would withdraw that. So the story sort of fell away from the public eye. I suppose it's, I love the idea of sort of change starting with one unexpected action and this sense that, the film's partly about people, especially with Greville Wynne, because Penkovsky was already a sort of hero. He'd been decorated 13 times in the Second World War. He was absolutely instrumental in defending Kiev from the Nazis, and he was sort of, by any standards, a heroic character, whereas Greville Wynne was a sort of very regular guy. And he didn't know what he was capable of. And I found that very moving. And the friendship that developed between the two of them was, I think, in reality and in our film, really intense and transformative. And that, within a spy genre movie, I think was unusual. I loved the sort of warm heart that the film's got, or the script had when I first read it, set in that world of calculation and sort of espionage. I thought it was really unusual to see those two things together.
Well, I was going to say, that's what kind of struck me about it was that you have elements of the espionage kind of classic thriller, a Le Carre type, but instead of a bunch of shadowy kind of spy figures, you have these two men and their families at the heart of things. Is there a specific scene or moment that kind of stands out to you that really evokes that heart of the film?
Well, I mean, I think one of the best scenes in the film comes later on, and I don't want to sort of be a spoil it for people, but there's a moment where Penkovsky comes home and he sort of discovers that things aren't quite the way they are, and you sort of see their world collapse. And I just think those two actors, Merab Nenidze and his wife, were so incredible, absolutely extraordinary. So that's one. But I mean, I'm trying to think about other ones. I mean, there's some brilliant scenes with Jessie Buckley and with Benedict, where there's a scene where they go camping and she sort of knows something's wrong, but she doesn't know what it is, and he can't tell her. And their marriage is sort of beginning to collapse. And I think the reality is the cost of espionage and secrecy is immense. The personal cost is immense. The psychological cost, the cost of relationships. And those stories haven't been told very much. You know, as you say, you sort of get the shadowy sort of calculation, but you don't get the emotional, psychological cost. And I think that's what makes something heroic. If you have to pay a price for doing something for the benefit of others, it's more heroic than just sort of putting your physical life on the line. You're putting a lot more than that in a way. You're putting other people on the line. So yeah, that I suppose is really important to me.
And you mentioned 4 actors there, and the acting in the film is phenomenal. And especially the physical transformation too of the main actors is quite striking. But for a lot of audiences, this will be the first time they've really seen Merab in something, and he's a bit of a revelation, and his chemistry with everybody, but particularly with Cumberbatch, is quite something to watch. Can you talk about a bit about working with him and what he brought to the role of Penkovsky?
Yeah, Merab is so special. I mean, you know, he's a incredibly experienced actor. He's done everything, and he's had an extraordinary career already, but he's not that well known in the West. And I had seen him in a TV series called McMafia.
Oh, yes.
And he was the sort of real baddie in that. And I thought he was extraordinary in it. Every moment seemed sort of filled and charged. And so we went off to Moscow to meet the Russian-speaking actors. You know, my producers and the financiers, Film Nation, were a bit skeptical about me casting Penkovsky from some sort of pool of Russian actors. But I kind of said to them, look, I've got to give that a go, because these days, you know, authenticity is really important. And, you know, it's a sort of tall order trying to get someone who's American or British or whatever to, you know, learn Russian and to speak and to be authentically Russian. And I'd spent a bit of time in Russia over the years. And, you know, it's not just about the way someone speaks. There's a whole sort of completely different way of being that comes from that very different culture. And Merab is not actually Russian. He's Georgian, but he grew up in the Soviet Union. And anyway, we did a bunch of amazing auditions. I say they're amazing because the acting was just off the chart. I mean, we were sort of like introduced to the sort of royalty of Russian acting. And so it was a bit of a treat in that regard. But Merab came in to read for the head of the KGB. He wasn't actually coming in to do Penkovsky. And he was so good, we called him back the next day. And that was that. And the tape was so good that my financiers immediately went, well, we can't say no. And he was just, he's incredibly hardworking. He's sort of very funny. He's warm. And he helped things. You know, he helped the Russian actors who were working in the UK, often for the first time, sort of feel at home. And he sort of he's sort of that kind of guy. He's really wonderful. And I'm hoping to work with him again. He's very special.
I think it's definitely somebody everybody should be keeping an eye on, even though, as you say, he's had this incredible career already. But here in the West, I'm really excited to see what else he does. On the other side of the coin, you've got Benedict Cumberbatch, who you've worked with before, twice, once at the Royal Court, and then for the terrific Hollow Crown trilogy. How has your working relationship kind of evolved over the years, and how did you collaborate to bring Greville to the screen?
Well, it has evolved partly because we've got older. And he's gone on this extraordinary trajectory, because when I first worked with Benedict, he wasn't the megastar he is now. He was sort of very respected, mainly theatre actor. He'd done bits and pieces in film, but mainly theatre actor. He was sort of on the way up. And then we worked again in Hollow Crown, by which time he'd done Sherlock. So he was sort of big league, and now he's done a sort of Marvel movie. So I've gone in at different stages of his career and also his experience. You know, I mean, what's been interesting to see how he's grown in confidence, how he's grown in sort of his technique, and that's been fascinating. But I do sort of know him and I know how he works. So it was the useful thing in this movie was sort of being able to preempt certain sort of aspects to his process, you know, and every actor works differently. And it's really useful if you sort of understand what it's a lot of it's to do with timing. A lot of it's to do with timing, you know. Benedict's a very intuitive and instinctive actor. He's a bright guy, but his strongest choices are his most intuitive choices, and he creates all sorts of unexpected stuff in the moment in a brilliant way. And so you sort of have to be there to pick that up, and you have to sort of respond. And one of the things I've learned with him is I don't really give him notes until he's done about 3 takes, because normally he sort of self-corrects in the early takes brilliantly. And I noticed that if I sort of got in the way and gave too many notes too early, that would just mess with his head. So what I tend to do when I've worked with him, so I learned this on Hollow Crown, is just sort of let him find his way. And then if something's missing, I will go in and sort of push him in another direction. But he did a lot of research to Wynne, and he made some really interesting discoveries, and he's very physical as well. So he sort of looked at how Wynne was in the footage that we found and sort of worked with that. That was very important to him.
What was, you say that he found some surprising things, but was there anything in the story that, as you kind of got into it, that surprised you along the way?
I think, one of the things that surprised me actually was more about Wynne's background, and that was, I found really, really useful, because I think he was someone who was actually, as it turned out, quite frustrated. I think he was a product of a working class Welsh family with a mother who was very aspirational and really sort of wanted her son to make it in the world. And he was thwarted by his dyslexia, which was very sort of extreme. And as I'm sure you would know, that at that time, which would have been when was that? I think he was born in the war, First World War. So this would have been 20s or 30s. He was just treated like sort of put to the back of the class kind of thing. And I think that he felt a certain amount of frustration with that. And what I think he found in this extraordinary and unexpected series of events that he sort of played a part in was the sense of destiny. You know, it's like, at last I get to play something important. At last I get to be who I was meant to be. And that was really fascinating and really helpful with our sort of playing of that role and our understanding of how to shape that bit of the story.
Well, and given the political climate right now, I think a lot of the Cold War stuff that might have seemed so far removed before maybe hits a little closer to home now. Sure. What do you think it is about the timing that makes this a good time to kind of tell or remind people of what happened here?
Well, I think in the end, there's a line in the film which is repeated at the very end of the film, and it sort of says, I'm paraphrasing, it sort of says, change begins with 1 or 2 people. And, we are at this period of sort of profound need for change in our society. And I think it's sort of interesting to reflect on how unexpectedly one is called to do things in life, or can be. The notion that, we don't really know what we're capable of until we're sort of tested. And I think that, in terms of the moment we're in right now, is sort of really a useful thing to be talking about. But you're right that, unfortunately, the world seems to have regressed into these 2 very separate worlds. And I'm fascinated by Russia and by its incredible history and its, I think the sense that people have there of sort of destiny, actually. They have a very different outlook on life, and I find it really sort of appealing. In Russia, people tend to be incredibly hospitable, very warm, very, very open people. Right. But one of the things that happened at the end of the Soviet Union was that the structures were pretty much left in place. So whilst there were certain changes made, stuff like the legal system, the education system weren't changed at all. And the education system in the Soviet Union was designed to make people conform, not to question. And in the West, for all the flaws we have a very different idea about what we're sort of trying to get the education system to do. And I think that it has resulted in the lack of sort of examination of all of those structures and change has resulted in Putin and his power grab, which I find, frankly, really, really depressing.
Yeah.
So what has happened there?
And just one last question, looking ahead a bit, instead of kind of looking back, you got a chance to share the other day, finally, about an upcoming project that you'd been keeping secret for a long time. Now, I'm sure you're sworn to secrecy about the stage version of Game of Thrones, but I thought I'd just ask if there's anything that you can share. And given that Cumberbatch also has some dragon experience, whether there might be room for a fourth collaboration.
I have no idea about any of the casting or anything like that. I've been sort of attached to it for about 2 years now. And
wow.
It's taken a long time to sort of sort out rights and all that kind of stuff. And Duncan has been putting together a script, and he's on a sort of early draft of a script which is based on bits of the story that George has sort of given us. And that's sort of all I can say, only because that's all there is. But it's a great... George has been delightful. Duncan is a brilliant and really unusual writer, and the producers are a joy. So far, I've had a lovely old time of it, but there's a lot to do.
Well, thank you so much, and I'm looking forward to that and Follies too, which I'm really looking forward to. And congratulations again on the Courier. It was really great.
Thanks a lot, Emma. Cheers.
Thanks. Good luck with the rest of the day. Bye-bye.
Thank you. You too.